Bear Group, and Lee and I, who are the co-artistic directors of the Bear Group, obviously. And we're gonna chat with Vaughn for, oh, 20 minutes or so, and then we'll open it up for questions if you and observations and thoughts. And if you have a question and or observation and thought, the thing to do is to use the raise hand function, which is in the participants section. So when you, on Zoom, when you click participants, you'll see a bunch of names, and there's a button there that says raise hand, and that will make a blue hand appear next to your name, and we'll be able to see those hands, and we'll call on you and take your question. During the session, during the part of our conversation where Robert, Lee, and I are talking with Vaughn, I'm going to ask everybody to mute their microphone and turn off your video so that we can just zero right in on the central conversation that starts it. And then as we take questions from people, I'll ask you to unmute your microphone and turn on your video so that you're there for your question, and people will just be coming and going in that way. So hey Brian. We're gonna kick this off. So hi. Welcome everybody. Welcome to our artist conversation on this Wednesday at 5 p.m. And this is an unusual one. We sort of moved our programming around because of all that's happened in the recent weeks that was triggered by the murder of George Floyd and all the appropriate and wild response that has been going on. And we just thought that we should start what's going to be a long discussion about matters, all matters pertaining to these kinds of events. And so there'll be many of these over the course of time. But we were trying to figure out how to get this discussion going. And what made sense to us was to invite Vaughn Buffalo to join us. So at this point, I'm going to ask everybody, if you can, to just turn off your video and mute your microphone. And Robert Sorrell, and Lee Brock and I are going to chat with Vaughn. And then after a while, we'll open this up for questions. So I'm just going to do a little bit of Zoom housekeeping here. Okay, great. So here we are. Vaughn, by the way, I should just let you know who Vaughn is. Vaughn has been on our board of directors for several years. Vaughn is...
it's greater than 10, isn't it? I think it's at least 10.
Yeah, I underestimated. Vaughn's just an extraordinary human being. He's an attorney by trade and longtime participant and supporter of the board. And when we were kicking around, what to talk about this day, I thought, Vaughn, you should come on, because Vaughn told me a story, and I thought, oh my God, that's something that needs to be shared. And Vaughn's first reply to me, he goes, well, I don't think of myself as an artist. And I pointed out that, well, if you've been involved with our arts organization for this long, welcome to the club. you're an artist.
And also just how Vaughn has shared on several occasions how art has touched his soul and what art means to him, and that he has been a part of an arts organization because he really shares the same belief that I do, that you do, that Robert does, that art can heal people and heal the planet. So he's told many stories how art has done that for him. So we are so grateful that he has given his services to the Bear Group, and he's here with us today to help in this healing process.
So welcome, Vaughn.
Thank you.
You're the other day when we spoke, it was right on the heels. That was quite a turbulent day, and you were sharing some personal stuff, and just I found it so moving, and I'm wondering if you could maybe share some of that and talk about we build this whole discussion as ways to address systemic racism, and you just have a story that's sort of personal relevant, and I'm wondering if you feel comfortable telling it.
Sure, sure. It's very personal, and it's hard to start the story because it's actually affected my life all the time. I got hurt when I was 19 years old.
Hmm.
When I was at college at Harvard, I wanted to. I was playing rugby, and just before I want to start into the story, I just want to also say that when I saw what happened to George Floyd and saw the way he was treated, what happened to me is nothing compared to that. It's just that there were some parallels in the treatment. And so I was rushing to hand off a paper because I was going to go into the car, cross the street, go into the car, get in the car. I'm going to drive up to Montreal because we're going to play McGill in rugby. And I was really excited. So I ran to the science center, gave him my paper, and ran out the side door. And the car was waiting for me across the street. And I was coming out into the street, and there's a bus. I came in front of the bus, and the car did not see me, nor did I see the car. And the car hit me at 35 miles an hour. I hit the hood, I hit the windshield, I cracked the windshield, and I was thrown into the air and landed on the other side of the street. I remember everything. I did not get knocked out. I especially remember the sound. It sounded like a 50-pound apple thrown at 100 miles an hour into a concrete wall, kind of a splat and a crack. And then people ran to me and they rushed to me and they picked me up and they rushed me over to Harvard's infirmary. And the doctor was testing me. What they do is they pronate your knee to see, how are you hit? This is kind of they pronate your knee. And I didn't know it at the time, but I had two ligaments broken: the ACL ligament and the MCL ligament. So if I had relaxed, the guy would have put my knee into an L. I mean, even now, when they have football and they show slow motions of people getting, I can't watch that. And so I tensed up my knee, and he said, "Oh, well, you're fine," and he sent me home. And when I think back on it, it gets worse and worse, because this is a person who was a doctor at the Harvard Infirmary. You don't get to be a doctor at the Harvard Infirmary unless you are the bomb diggity. You are doing your residency at Mass General or whatever it is, if you're going to Harvard's infirmary. And what did he think? He thought that a 3,000-pound car going at 35 miles an hour didn't hurt me, that I'm a human. See, it's almost like because I'm seen as this big black guy and superhuman, I get treated subhuman. It's kind of like that. That's why George Floyd had that knee on his neck. He was a big, huge black guy. Now, I think the guy who had the knee on his neck wanted to take him out, but the other 3-4 cops who didn't do anything, did all of them say, "Oh, we want to kill this guy"? I'm not sure, but some of them said, "Oh, he can handle it." And it reoccurs over and over to me when I go. I've had 3 surgeries in this knee, right? So I've seen a lot of orthopedic doctors, and the orthopedic doctors, the real ones, when they test your knee, it's very gentle. They always build trust. You never think that they're going to hurt you. And it's just weird to me that this doctor, this very good doctor, thought that if you get hit by a 3,000-pound car going at 35 miles an hour, you're going to be fine. Well, this guy, Vaughn, look at him. He's fine. We can send him home. And that's what happened. And uh, and couple that with the fact that I could be in Central Park and some person could not be happy with me, and she could call the cops, and 8 out of 10, if they had stayed there and the cops had come, the man, he would have been in trouble. You got a black guy, big black guy, and a white lady. The cops are going to side for the white lady, and so that's so it's a reoccurring thing. Whenever I go exercise, whenever I go and see a doctor, whenever I see a football game, I'm reminded of this over again, and and then I'm also reminded of it as I grow my hair out, as this grows out, as I get more sun, I look more quote unquote black and scary. And as a result, and the more I lift weights, does that mean I'm causing more fear, and the more vulnerable I am? So it's kind of a weird situation to be seen as this very dangerous thing. And as a result of being seen as so dangerous, I'm going to get an extra couple of bullets. I'm going to get a knee to my neck. I'm going to get treated in a way that is non-human, that sees me as not human.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And you and I were talking about, uh, just how big of an issue this is, and how long these kinds of fears have been in existence. And you were telling me about the historical precedent with police and how policing actually developed in our country. And I wonder if you could share some of that.
Oh, sure. Uh, you know, Police were brought about to control a property, slaves, black populations, and and what I often say or want to say, and this is not really from me. This is from my law professors who I see are on the call today.
Hmm.
Is that the problem that we're facing is a 400-year problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 400-year problem. It has created the soil in which our police has been grown up, right? So our police, if you want to see the real understanding of something, figure out its history. So the police were brought up to control slave population, to control rogue elements, and to protect property. And so, and particularly landed gentry and folks who are allowed to own property, which was generally white men. That's who were allowed to own property, and that's kind of how our country was created. It was created to protect that. It's very difficult to, like, for example, our justice system says that to be convicted, you have to be convicted beyond a reasonable doubt, right? That's pretty high standards, like 85%. Got to be 85% correct. Can't have more than a 15% doubt or a 14.9% doubt. That's a pretty high standard. Not only that, but you're allowed to have someone who represents you. Well, what has happened now? Right now, if you are engaged in, if you're a criminal, or not if you're a criminal, if you get picked up and charged with a crime, then you will have, that crime will be overcharged. It will be overcharged. you will have a, you,
What does
if you,
overcharge mean?
okay, so if I did something that's a misdemeanor, right, they're going to really charge me with a felony two, or something like that. They're going to
That's just a routine practice?
routine
Okay.
practice to pump it up. And not only that, but they overburden the defense teams so that you only have about 15 to 20 minutes with your lawyer,
Okay.
right? For a charge that's overblown. So what do? You've got to plead. And so you plead, but when you plead, you give up a bunch of rights. You give up your ability to have a job going forward in the future. You can't vote after that. So my point is that this racial soil in which all of these societal things have grown have this overall effect of 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 destroying the lives of Black and brown people. That's what happens. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's just in the criminal justice system. That has nothing to do with economics, which
Mm-hmm.
it has nothing to do with culture. That has nothing to do with the nation state. That's just the criminal justice system.
Right.
Because so okay, so I went on a little too long.
No,
No,
not at
that's
all.
great.
Not at all.
Oh, and
Um,
oh,
oh, go ahead.
maybe
Go
like
ahead.
and Vaughn. So, what are some tools that we can take away with that will help bridge the communication between people?
Well, one other thing I want to say before I talk about the tools. Um, One other thing is that it's so endemic in our society that we can't even see it. It's
Right,
hard to see. It's
right,
hard to see. It's like just think of George Floyd. So okay, so he got a knee to the neck and then he died. The paramedics came. They did not start CPR. Then he got an autopsy, and the autopsy said possible drug use, and it said he got a bad heart, and so it's almost like. And then when they communicated with the family, they said, "Oh, he resisted arrest." It's almost like there's all this. It's sprinkled throughout the whole process,
right,
and overall, even if one of the link of the chains fails, the other links can pick up. I mean, oh no, he definitely was killed in police custody. Well, did he resist arrest? Do we have evidence for that? No, we don't have that. Well, we could actually, maybe its heart was bad, so it wasn't really the knee on the neck. It's really his heart bad. So it's almost like sprinkling all across all of it.
right.
Um,
Like one of the
and
things you said the other day is like we're swimming in racist waters,
yeah, yeah,
which
that's right. We can't see it. We can't see it. Um,
And so,
um,
so
yeah,
what do we do about it? You and I were talking earlier, and you used the image of a snow globe. You talked about, can you talk about that a little bit? You were talking about the conversational remedies and stuff like that.
sure. The thing that I see now is that this is our culture is conversing. It's convulsing. That's what our culture is doing right now. Um, because I think um, there are a lot of people that say, "Oh, that what happened in Central Park, that lady did not even practice it. It just came, right? So somehow she was taught that in her how she grew up. It was practiced in her mind. She didn't do it in front of a mirror. Oh, how do I do this? But she was perfect at it. She was perfect at it. And I also think that people, the George Floyd thing is, you know, I mean, we had movies about this stuff with Spike Lee and so forth, and now it's another thing to actually see like someone dying in front of your face,
Yeah.
and so uh, um, I lost my train of
Well,
thought.
we were talking
Tools
about the,
to
and
help or
specifically I was asking about that snow globe image because
Yes, yes.
we,
So
we were talking about how like there often seems to be uh, a pattern where, things come up and we talk about it and there's a lot of talking that goes on. And then you described it as like, so there's this conversation, and then it floats back down. So it's been stirred up.
exactly.
And
You stir it up and it's floating, and then it will just float right back down to where it was before. Why is that? Because I feel like our society's tools are kind of broken. I mean, we're trying to do surgery on ourselves, and our tools are already messed up. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure that our society can fix itself. And but what we can do is, work on a local level. We can work on the Barrow Group. We can work on our families. We can work on. I'm not so certain that our society trying to fix itself. I don't know. Sure, I'm not sure our tools can do it.
because it
right.
feels too big.
And I love what you said about just even working small, like one step at a time or one person at a time. And I know that we talk about at the Bear Group too. It's one of our core values is how are we able to create a safe, nurturing environment so that the artist can unfold. And the Bear Group has attracted lots of kind people, so that every encounter that we try to have, I think of as a spiritual encounter, and that kind of starting small. I totally hear that, and maybe you can even offer some tools to
To do
help us
that,
to do
yeah. I
that.
mean, in other words, if we're starting locally, whatever that
How
means,
do we do
whether
that?
it's with the Bear Group as for us as an organization, or for all the people listening in their lives, what are things that we could do? I get, and to be fair, um, you know, I get, Vaughn, that you're not a social scientist. But you're a human being and you're a smart guy, and
You're so
I
smart.
just value your thoughts on it.
Number one, I think I'm going to use the word recognize our failure, TBG's failure.
Hmm.
Yep.
Um, recognize that uh, when we what is our teacher what do our teachers look like? What's our student body look like? I think we've done a pretty good job on our board body as far as diversity, but there are things that we've got to fix. And to me, as an incoming chair, the very first thing that I would love to work on is is increasing the number of diverse teachers, Black and brown teachers,
Great.
and
Yeah.
that's what I want to do. I think there would be. It's a compounding effect. It's almost like, I swear to God, I went to Harvard and Columbia, right? And I remember every single person I talked to got riled up by their Black professors. They either hated it or they loved it, or well, much more in Columbia, they hated it. And why am I spending my money? This and the other, blah blah blah. So I kind of feel like if we have Black and brown teachers in positions of power, not power, but teaching
Authority.
to
Mhm.
our kids,
Mhm.
that changes the way it changes the way the students see not only white students but also Black students. I mean, it's a compounding effect.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it seems to me that is a good place to go.
Mhm.
And agreed. And I
Totally
think that
agree.
accepting our organizational failure on that front is essential, and it gives us a starting point. And we're currently working on that, and we'll continue to. And that's one of the things we're really excited about, coming on as board chair, um, to help us with that as we continue that endeavor. What about for folks that, there's a lot of a lot of people watching this particular call are actors. They're or artists. They might be writers and directors. I recognize some of the faces, and they're you know they each have their own story of what their life is comprised of. For a lot of actors, it's comprised of some sort of what they might call a straight job, that it might be a job in the service industry. And now, of course, of the pandemic, that's all blown up and everything. And then occasionally having an opportunity to audition for things and maybe work. Then that work is always temporal. You get a job and then it's over. Um, but I'm imagining that everybody's like me and that things like this go on, and all of a sudden we think like, I really want to do something. And what are steps that we can take that will feel like local steps for everybody who's on this meeting? I know you don't know everybody who's on the meeting, nor do I, but I'm just wondering if any kinds of things come to mind. I mean, there are links that we've distributed to organizations that people can contribute to and everything, but it feels like the discussions want to happen more intrapersonally, and that the action wants to happen intrapersonally. What can we do?
Yeah, yeah, that's a big question. I kind of feel like um, the first thing that comes to mind is kind of is take control of where you spend your money. I kind of feel like um, you know, figuring out how you want to impact the world, because you do have an impact. You have an impact, no matter the time you spend, who you call on the phone, who you spend dinner with, what you patron, where you put donations. Those all have impacts, and if there was a collective consciousness if there was a collective consciousness to to allocate funds in the ways that you want to be represented in your life, I think there could be a change. One thing that pops into my mind as well is that, and this is off topic, but for example, if 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 every 18 to 25-year-old or 30-year-old voted much like the 50 to 56-year-olds vote, everything would change like that, immediately. The number of people between 18 and 30 is huge.
Yeah.
But yet, and not only that, but those 18 to 30-year-olds, they don't care who you marry. They don't care where you go to bathroom. They care about environmental stuff. They care about the earth. It's almost like the 18 to 30-year-olds have a what it would be is it's either Gemeinschaft or Gesellschaft. I think it's Gemeinschaft of maybe that's wrong, of a collective consciousness. And if they actually implemented that, it would change things immediately. So I guess I'm saying, recognize the power of your thoughts, of your actions, and of how you allocate your money, and make those decisions accordingly.
Yeah, wow. At this point, we're going to open this up for any observations and or questions or thoughts. And so if you have a thought, please use the button that says raise hand. And I'm going to shift my view so I can see everybody. And there's a participants window here, and we can see if your hand goes up, we will see that your hand's up, and we'll call on you. And if we call on you, feel free to turn on your video and unmute, and we can we'd love to hear your thoughts and really get this conversation going. Robert, did you have any thoughts and or questions that you wanted to bring into this?
I just wanted to thank Vaughn. That's all. Thank you, Vaughn.
Yeah. The You know, it's funny. I'm thinking. I see David Diamond has a question. Hey, David.
David.
David, can you turn off? I mean, unmute your microphone and turn on your camera.
Video.
And there you are. Hey, David.
Hey everybody, hey Vaughn. Vaughn and I have had some conversations as well, and I think that as he described, we're fighting a bigger battle than what's going on just in the Barrow Group. This hierarchical society, this capitalist idea of that if some people have to be higher, other people have to be lower, and even the structures of theater companies are on that same model. Like there's the people who are the gatekeepers, or the people who can tell other people, yes, you can, or no, you can't. And I think that adds to and leads to the kind of ongoing issues of access, of privilege that we're all facing. I think this is a really particular moment in time right now when these issues are becoming more prevalent or more on our mind. And I think one of the things that we as a theater company can do is to make sure that when this moment passes, that these ideas and these thoughts don't. In other words, we can have an ongoing conversation about race, about misogyny, about sexuality, gender expression that permeates our company. Like we could have a subcommittee of the board and, with other people, maybe students or whatever, that where this issue becomes primary, becomes very important. And I think what Vaughn was saying about funding is really right, spot on. I mean, that's where the budget of a company expresses the priorities of the company. Mm-hmm. And I think if we decide that a priority is to be more inclusive, then we have to put our money where our mouth is. We really have to make a change in how we think about putting a budget together. Mm-hmm. But there are also other things that we can do. A lot of people who maybe could be involved with the Barrow Group can't afford to even come to auditions because they have childcare to pay for, they have jobs. What does it cost them to, get to an audition, spend the time, pay for their childcare so they can come back and forth? How can people organize their lives around being a theatrical member of the theatrical community, and when they're not making enough money, even when they get jobs, to pay for the expenses that they have? So it's both a racial thing, but also a hierarchical thing, and a question of having enough resources yourself and your family in order to participate. So I think there's a lot of discussion to be had, and I think that it should be an ongoing discussion. But I really would like to open this space up for if there are other, Black and brown voices in this group, that I'd love to hear from them too.
Yeah,
Thank you, David.
It's funny because there's so many little things to navigate, and the notion of I'll use the word task force. That's what comes up to mind, of a group of people that are dedicated to addressing issues related to racism and exclusivity and inclusion and all that kind of stuff. And it's funny, there's in the arts, there are all sorts of little built-in hurdles that, to me, raise questions. I just realized that getting into those things is going to be a big endeavor, and it's a good endeavor, for sure. I see Brian Rojas, your hand's up. Brian, can you unmute and turn on your video? And David, thanks for that question.
Thank you,
so
David.
much.
Yes. Hello
Hi,
guys.
Brian.
How are
Hey,
you?
Brian.
Hi. Hey, Vaughn. Thank you guys so much first for putting this this platform together for us to have this conversation, and Vaughn for sharing your story, and just for everyone that's part of this community. Thank you for being here and for having this space for us. Some of the things, yeah. I fantasize about some of the ideas that Vaughn has brought up, about having more students that look like me, or Black students, or just more diversity in our students. It's a conversation that I've had outside of class many a times. Um, Actually, an interesting story that I'll share with you really quickly. There's an actress that came to watch 17 Minutes, and she reached out to me, and she invited me to a group of Latino actors that get together once a week. And so I started to think, and now we get together once a week and we read plays, mostly, like a Gerges play, or with characters that resemble people that maybe we grew up around, or we can even identify with. And then I wondered, the Barrow Group is my home. It's where I've been met with so much kindness and nurturing spirit. And I thought, why this doesn't exist in our home as well? Why we don't have these groups inside of our community. So I wanted to share that first, because that's a thought that came to me when I heard Vaughn and some of your ideas. Something else that kind of came up to me, just the idea of kind of trying to change things locally, is something that I told myself when we got the results of the election back then. I said, you know what, I said, I'll focus. I'm not going to be down. I'm going to focus on making my home a better place, my neighborhood a better place, people I interact with, and now I see this momentum and this vigilance and this energy, and I feel like it calls for something grander than just working at our local levels. Just thinking about our homes and our communities and our neighborhoods. And so I'm speaking to as many people as I can, whether they're friends of mine and that I can reach through a message group, or, right now we're not really getting together because of our health precautions. But we're having the conversations, and a lot of people are asking me, well, what is the end goal? What is the list of demands? What is it that we want to change? And then it's something that I ask us all to think about internally, because my list of demands, or what I would like to see differently, might be different from yours. And it's no list of demand is more important than the other.
Yeah.
Right.
Vaughn, you were
That's
that
really
was
beautiful said,
yeah.
Brian. So beautifully said. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think it was with you the other day, we were talking about police education versus police training. Was that with you?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that's right. We train policemen to be warriors, and to be, to restrain people, and these kinds of. We don't do any training with respect to how to de-escalate, or doing training as to how to deal with a psychotic person, or training to deal with someone who's in health distress. And I think I got this suggestion, or heard from one of my friends who said, I think it was Kendall, who said that, there was a police officer who said, look, we need to have police education, meaning not 8 months training, right, but actual education, and have police be part of the community, be venerated in the community, get a little bit more funding, and that they will actually be part of the community, so that they will have an invested stake in the actual community. I mean, I think Brian Stevenson talked about the fact that he put together a report of 40, recommendations for reducing policing violence, and he said they're all have to do with changing the police culture. All have to do with changing the police culture. I also wanted to speak to Brian's point, and I wanted to say what my list of demands were. My list of demand would be, number one, a legal system that actually is fair. Now, these are big aspirational. Number two, a nation state that actually protects its people, an economic system that actually delivers goods in a decent manner, not this what we're having now, where we're separating the haves and have-nots, and it's becoming more and more worse. That's not what our economic system is supposed to do. It's supposed to deliver things to people efficiently, but now it's delivering things to people for the highest price, which is not necessarily the most efficient. I'd want an international community that actually can work together. A virus beat us. We got beaten by a virus, and the international community could not work together. I would also add culturally. I'm a little upset over the way just today CNN talked about disparities in race, and they used it. They had a graphic, and the graphic said, this is the wealth, and they had a big circle, and they had different races and income and unemployment and poverty and health, and income is unemployment is time bound. Income is dependent on how you define it, particularly wealth, how you define it. Poverty also has definitional pegs that can be changed. What does healthcare really mean? The only thing that really spoke to me was they were looking at the virus deaths. They were looking at the difference in race, the different percentages for races on virus deaths. And I thought, of all of those statistics, first of all, it's kind of like trying to explain special relativity in 15 seconds. Right? Yeah. You can't do it, right? Second, and another thing is that the virus deaths, that is actually a pretty good statistic, because the virus is going to go out. It doesn't discriminate. It just goes out, right? It's been around for billions of years. They know what they're doing, right? So they just go out, and the deaths have to do with all of these factors that go in to someone's health and their ability to get health care and their ability to be seen, and all these factors, and it results in death. And so it saddens me when we have a media that's just all about clicks and views, and not about real information, because that information they put on their front page was not helpful, except for the coronavirus deaths.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I could spin political here, and we're actually, I don't want to do that much,
Sorry.
but I will just enough to say I was on the phone with a friend of mine, Wendell Pierce, last night for an hour and a half, I think, and one of the things we were talking about is how when somehow successfully we stopped being from a media perspective, we stopped having a source of what I don't know how to describe them other than just facts, things that are without punditry. Like, and I started to notice it about 5 years ago. The New York Times, like the first, like all of a sudden, like a third of the front page and sometimes 2/3 of the front page was all punditry. And then I noticed it at, the PBS NewsHour, and it's like, there'll be a news item, and then right away, here's our panel talking about it. And I think what came up for me as you were talking is that if we don't have agreed upon facts to refer to as we converse and problem solve, we have such big trouble. And it feels to me like, from a media perspective, with Fox News and whatever polarizing, networks there are, companies that are spinning things, it starts to feel like, there's just two worlds with different facts. But of course, I think objectively, no, facts are facts. And there's got to be some way for us to, as a society, if we're not getting a satisfactory exposure to the facts in normal news outlets, there must be a way that we can find you know, the facts and just be able to refer to them so that we can build an entire logic and reasoning off of something that's sound. Because right, you know, when I talk to people you know, I'm definitely I lean left in a big old way, and I talk to folks that lean right, and it pretty soon it's like, oh my God, we have different reference points. I don't even know how to address it, you know. So that's another one of the big hurdles that it seems like
Right.
we need to, you know, somehow address.
Well, I want to, oh, what, or did
No,
I
go
cut
ahead.
you off? I just
No,
want to
no, no, go ahead.
say, did anybody have a question? I don't want to stop.
Anybody else?
No, and not only that, believe it or not, we're out of time.
We're out of
Um,
time.
we are.
Okay.
Isn't
It
that
went so
crazy?
fast. But here's the deal. Clearly, we haven't even begun to
Right,
scratch the surface of this.
right.
And I think part of, you know, one of the many, there's a couple of things that as a company we're doing to projects that we're starting to kind of get this conversation going. One thing we're doing is we're going to be curating uh, stories, direct stories that people have who've experienced racism firsthand, and where people will share their stories. On Friday, we have a different story project, a restorative story project, and I'm going to give folks details on an upcoming project, which is about generating stories for this so that we can share that with the community. And these are really all just conversation starters. Well, they have an element of art to it, and that it's storytelling, and will apply and encourage people to apply the same artistic principles they would in creating anything so that the stories are as compelling and engaging as possible. But just it's all part of this ongoing conversation that we need to keep having so that the conversation doesn't just become one of the snow globe things. Just we talk, and it falls away. We have to somehow turn this into action. It's just, I can't, I just can't. Uh, it's so endlessly difficult and challenging sometimes to realize that this stuff is omnipresent and it still exists. The image is burned into my brain of watching people fire hose in the '60s, and how just absolutely inhuman it seemed to me to see that stuff go on. And then here we are, and we have this, you know, series of deaths at the hand of law enforcement, and God knows how many other injustices at the hand of everybody. And so we definitely want to, you know, we stand in solidarity and want to do something about it. So this is a start, and I just want to thank you, Vaughn, for coming in and kicking this off. I also want to thank all the people that have joined. I can see from the list we have some incredibly smart people out there for some very high profile and you know, big cheeses. And I appreciate your involvement. I know that Deputy Bureau President Matthew Washington is going to participate with us in an event similar to this soon.
And I
And
think what
we'll keep
Seth
this
says
going.
though too, just even this is a beginning of a discussion, of a conversation, just to kind of keep this, keep it all moving forward so we can heal each individual, one person at a time. And so the snow globe, we just keep those conversations going, keep the talk going so that we can heal each person, one person at a time, with our stories, with our love, with our kindness. And we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, we do.
But, you know, as you said, it's a 400-year-old problem. And I think that maybe we can solve it in 10 minutes, but I don't think so. So, right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you want to bring everybody up just to?
Yeah, it might be
So
just
we'll
as a
bring-
moment of closure to just, if we could just ask everybody just to turn on your video.
Turn
It's
on
just a
your
way
cameras just to say
to
hello.
recognize community, see
Right.
each other,
We're all
see
part of
all the
it.
people that we know and love, and all the people that we don't know here, because
Right.
there's a lot of you as well.
A lot of beautiful people
We'll be
here.
doing more of those. It's so great to see these faces and all the faces that we can see. There's quite a few people in on this, and the next one will be bigger, and there'll be more.
Bigger, and continuing the discussion, continuing the conversation, and
Yes.
we're so grateful that you're all here with us this evening, and so
Yeah.
grateful to Vaughn for sharing your story and for being a major leader.
Yeah.
We thank
It's
you. For
I'm so happy and so very, very happy to to be a part of this organization. I'm so excited about what we can do with our art, and really happy to see everybody here.
Yeah. I love you, Vaughn.
I love it too.
And I love all of you as well. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Just a little bit of quick housekeeping. We have a lot of ongoing programming. If you go to barrowgroup.org, you can see all of the free programming that we have. And then we also have our regular, we are a theater company and run a training program, and so there are ongoing classes. You can see that stuff as well. Please frequent it, and we'll see you all soon online, and look forward someday to seeing you in the flesh in a room where we don't have to do
Hug you.
an air
Right.
hug.
Yeah.
Take care, be safe. Right, air hugs, air hugs. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Okay,
Thanks,
keep
everybody.
the conversation going.
Okay.
Keep it all moving forward, moving forward.